Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Crossing Swords. As always, I'm Andrew.
And I am exhausted. I got to tell you.
Yeah?
Yes, because the sort of the British news cycle this week has just been spinning faster than the wheels on Lance Armstrong's bike after the drugs.
Wow.
I mean,
when you say after the drugs, let's clarify here, because this is important.
Sure.
Is this
about
whilst taking drugs or post taking drugs? So as in, like, he'd given them up?
No, whilst he was on the drugs.
Right, okay, so really fast.
Really
sorry
going
to be
for
pedantic, I like to know what I'm working with.
It's just not stopped. Do you know what I mean? It's been so... It's insane. You want to try and keep up.
Yeah.
But my God, it's impossible. So what I thought I'd do, with your permission, because we're all about consent here.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
It depends.
I shouldn't throw that in as a caveat. That's a bad joke, and I feel like
I'll tell you what I always tell you. Only with lube. All right? You know that's my 1 gram rule?
Sure. And
not just spit. I want the good stuff.
For this, the lube is going to be my dulcet tones.
Oh.
Which is going to help this go down a lot smoother.
Well, in that case,
so what I'm going to do is, look, I've been trying to keep notes of like what's been going on for the week. I'm just going to absolutely rifle through them.
Right.
Okay. And we'll get to the end and we'll see where we're at. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Holyrood, the Scottish Parliament.
Yep.
They voted in a majority to pass the GRR bill, and then the Tories overturned it, which I think is a monumental moment in the devolution of the country. I really do. I mean, it's the first time that the English have ever actually overridden a piece of Scottish parliamentary act.
Yeah.
And then Keir Starmer came out and even supported the overturning of it. It's all a bit dumb because it's just about getting ID. It's got nothing to do with medical transition, which is how this has been spun.
Yeah.
A lot of people talking about, oh yeah, but the two. It's like no, it's literally just getting like a birth certificate. And as a lot of trans people have said, it's like, when was the last time you needed to use your birth certificate? I mean, it hardly ever comes up. It's really not that big enough. Not that big a deal. The highest area, by the way, because the results of the census came out, the highest area with the trans population was, unsurprisingly, Brighton. How many of the Brighton population do you think are trans?
It must be under 10%.
0.75.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very low. But yes, we've been overturning workers' rights en masse, by the way. The policing bill finally passed, which manages to stop protests even if they're not disruptive.
If they could be perceived to be disruptive to 2 or more people or have the intent to disrupt is enough, I believe.
Actually, going back to the trans thing, Raab announced that preoperative trans women, basically anyone with male genitalia, would be put into male prisons, even if they're sort of, I can't think of the term, but low risk offenders, even if it's not a serious crime, if it's just shoplifting or something, they will still go to male prisons where they will almost certainly face rape and serious abuse, despite the fact that a recent poll suggested that 7 in 10 Brits support trans people and trans rights. It's also one of those things where a lot of trans people have to, for long, so sex work is counted as a sex offence.
Yeah.
A lot of trans people turn to sex work because of discrimination in the workplace, and because they have to go private because the waiting list on the NHS is so long. I think we discussed it before. It's like 3 or 4 years to even get your first appointment.
Oh, so they're going. There's private companies.
So they're going private healthcare.
Right,
But obviously, that costs a lot of money. They can't get a lot of money because no one's hiring them.
Do private healthcare really deal with this stuff then?
Some private companies do.
Right. Okay.
But no one's hiring. There's a lot of discrimination in the workplace against trans people. So they turn to sex work. Therefore, those convicted of it are now going to be housed in a male prison. 158,000 people signed a petition to remove LGBT rights from teachings in school. This government is giving in to like 158,000 people in the UK.
Right.
Have signed a petition asking the government to remove teaching of LGBT stuff, to stop teaching. Yeah. The government is giving into more far right rhetoric. Like, I don't like to use the N word. Not that one. The other N word. But like, we are in Nazi territory here. We have been marching further into it, and we are just getting into that dangerous territory.
With that one, I wonder, particularly because of what this country's like, we have a real issue about just sex education in general. And I wonder is that a part of that? rather than anti-trans, if you get what I mean. I know
it's just about picking a minority group and saying, right, let's really go for these guys.
Yeah.
Another criminal in the police who obviously
more than one
49 offences of rape, basically, from this one police officer. The Metropolitan Police announced that due to subsequent vetting and investigations, which they've launched into their own police force, that there will now be 2 or 3 Met officers in court over the next few months.
Okay.
And that's just the ones that they were really easily able to find proof on to take them to court.
Yeah.
2 or 3 every week for the foreseeable future. Are you aware of Suella Braverman and the Holocaust survivor?
No.
She was challenged by a Holocaust survivor who stood up and said that, look, I think that the language you're using against immigrants is dangerous. It's fear-mongering, it's hate-mongering.
And
she
it's
said,
awfully
and it was
similar.
And not to get into the Nazi territory, but she said, it was extremely similar to the language that was being used right in the immediate precedent for my family being killed and me coming over here. And she said, I'm not going to apologise for that, and I'm not going to stop using that language. Imagine saying that to a Holocaust survivor. Speaking of Hitler, what was termed a TERF, a trans-exclusive radical feminist.
Oh, okay. Yes, I have heard that term before.
Was genuinely, and I swear to God, I saw this video and I couldn't actually believe it. Yeah. I think I'm a bit behind the times. I think this video is a good couple of months old, but she actually stands up at a rally and quotes Hitler. Like, she genuinely said...
I've heard about it. I didn't watch it.
She genuinely said,
it.
I think it was the great... No, she didn't say great. She said, I think it was, Adolf Hitler who first said. And it's like, bro, how is anyone at that rally...
I saw that tiny bit.
How is anyone at that rally thinking anything other than, wait, what? Like, I don't want to be on this team anymore. No. I don't think this is for me. It's pretty bad. I mean,
should we get that as a soundbite for the pod? Just that one of it.
I think
Adolf Hitler once said.
I think we absolutely should, by the way. Right, then the real news started to break. Nadeem Zahawi started a few months ago, last year in fact, tried to sue the lawyers who were about to break the story on his taxes, which he claims was a careless misstep. The whole thing is around YouGov was set up in a trust, and therefore he sort of managed to avoid tax on it. It's to the tune of about 27 million. And he, rather than go to prison, like most of us would, he agreed a settlement fee with the HMRC whilst he was Chancellor, basically. Like, he was in charge of this company for a while, this branch of government.
I mean, look, he clearly knows how to manoeuvre money.
And he agreed to pay back like £3 million.
Yeah,
which is
plus
insane.
A fine on top of that, which I think knocks his full thing up to like just over 5 million.
Yeah, but just by the way, like, this obviously, a man who claimed heating his horse's stables on expenses. Yeah, so you can imagine he's pretty frugal with money.
Yeah.
Ethics committee, by the way, from the people who look after the knighthoods, actually looked at his he was nominated for a knighthood.
Yeah.
And they actually looked into his finances and deemed him unworthy of a knighthood. So he actually is not Sir Nadeem Zahawi because of the investigation by the HMRC that found him guilty. He was eventually sacked as the party chair by Rishi Sunak, who acted very quickly and decisively, waited 9 days after the story broke.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, the sacking wasn't because he avoided paying tax in the UK, which, by the way, we obviously have no money for anything right now. They're like, we can't afford to pay any of our public workers anything because we've got no money. I wonder where all that money is. No, he got sacked because he lied about being under investigation.
Right, okay.
So when he was appointed, they said, is there anything that we should be concerned about? And he said, absolutely not. And then they went, oh, but it turned out you were under investigation. Never mind the fact that he was guilty.
You could understand from his point of view with what the Tory party gets up to, why he'd think there wasn't anything for them to be concerned about.
So Rishi sacked him, obviously. He then wrote a letter that said, thanks, Rishi, for everything, and I'm proud to support you from the back benches. He didn't apologise for anything that he'd done.
No.
He didn't seem to claim any ownership. What he did do was attack the Fourth Estate. He said there's a real concern over the Fourth Estate. That'll be the Fourth Estate that broke these stories on him, I imagine, and the journalists that
have been
managed to break that.
The Tory party.
Yeah, Gavin Williamson, by the way, has now been chair. Yes, that's right, that Gavin Williamson.
Is this the guy that has the bullwhip in his office?
Yeah, it's the guy who was education secretary and then refused to.
He genuinely has a whip on his desk
kids
in the office to intimidate people.
And now he's the chair of the...
Is he also the guy that was doing dodgy financial stuff online? Like he was selling like really dodgy shit.
All I'm going to say is that could genuinely be all of them.
Yeah, I was quite vague there. I can't remember what it was, but there was someone who was involved in some proper...
Sajid Javid wanted to actually publicly claim that he wanted to charge £20 for GP appointments and £65 for the use of A&E services.
Yeah.
Stupid and dangerous. Then, of course, we move on to Boris Johnson, a man who's never been sadly never out of the news cycle, because I don't think he likes being out of the news cycle.
No. Well, look, the guy has some expenses. He needs to earn money.
Well, this is it. So he was... So he was found by Dickie Knight, Richard Knight, a man who he appointed as head of the BBC just a few months before being appointed as chair of the BBC. He facilitated a loan guarantor in the way of... Now, this bloke...
Of course he did!
This bloke is a Canadian businessman who is distantly related to Boris.
Yeah,
but he doesn't know Boris. So he's reached out to Richard Sharp and said, can you put me in contact with him? Who's put him in contact with Simon Case. And then he said, no, I didn't know anything about Boris's finances. How could you? You just agreed to get him an £800,000 loan, which is the really scary thing. Is a prime minister who's on £160,000 a year living outside of his means needs £800,000, which puts him...
If you think about it, though, this is how ridiculous things are. Boris took a pay cut to become PM because he was on an MP salary. He was on a cabinet minister salary on top. And then on top of that, he was earning 250 grand a year from his, is it the Telegraph?
Oh, yes.
His column in the Telegraph once a week, which he called, there was a phrase he used basically saying it was a pittance. So yeah, that guy clearly, I mean, look, how many kids does he have?
What's quite funny...
He's got to get money in, mate.
To me, and you have to laugh because I'll do your scream, is that, during this cost of living crisis, what we've heard a lot, particularly from the Conservative Party, is that perhaps people on the low end of the spectrum and people on benefits and stuff are living outside of their means.
Yeah,
maybe they're buying, expensive meals that they don't need to buy, little treats. They're buying themselves a cake or something and they don't need to do that. And here's a man who couldn't live within £160,000 a year, despite the fact that he was being gifted houses or being gifted the use of houses by the bloke who's in charge of JCB, and he's being, a donor paid for his fucking wallpaper with Lululemon. Remember that scandal?
Yep.
So he's not actually paying for anything, and he still needs £800,000. And what the really risk is that puts him at risk of influence by a foreign investor.
Being manipulated.
And yeah, basically, he wouldn't pass the vetting process to become even the most basic junior civil servant.
No.
Which is, I mean, come on.
The thing is, though, like, I know we're rattling through quickly, but does any of that shock you?
No.
Like, I don't know. I feel like when people do this outrage thing, when these things come out, and that's even if they do it at all, but I'm like, of course, yeah.
And just to be clear, he's now being independently investigated by the father of Rishi Sunak's head of policy. So there's no corruption there. And do you remember when I said to you a while back, a good few episodes ago, that I think Boris Johnson just sort of like stumbled upon a technique that worked and he just kept going with it?
Yeah.
When we were talking about how calculated he was. Well, true to form, he popped up in Ukraine for a photo op after the story broke. It's what he knew. It's what he worked last time.
Yeah.
So he went there again. He's now completely irrelevant to the Ukrainian bloc. He has no sway.
He can't do anything.
He can't do anything. He's just gone there and been a nuisance.
Or do you reckon he's saying to him, don't worry, mate, in a little bit, I'll be back.
It's just sort of stand up and they're like, we've actually got a lot going on. He's like, these new marble pillars are they? Didn't you used to have a building over here? Like, yeah, it got knocked down. Like, we're in the middle of a war, mate. Like, can we just, what a bumbling fucking dick. Let's have a little look. By the way, Richard Sharp as well, by the way, was only the second ever chairman of the BBC to sit on the panel when selecting the head of news. So usually when they select the head of news, BBC News, the chairman isn't involved in that decision.
Right, okay.
Ever. Twice. And the BBC, bear in mind, the BBC has been going since sort of like 1925 or 1922. In fact, they celebrated their centenary year last year. 1922, that's 100 years. Only twice, including this Richard Sharp, has the BBC chair ever been involved in that selection process. It worried a lot of high ups at the BBC and a lot of peers. They were really concerned about that. Then a leaked letter from Simon Case, who was Boris's advisor, who Richard Sharp got in contact with to suggest this loan. A leaked letter from Simon Case suggested that was written to Boris Johnson that said, with his upcoming announcement as chair of the BBC, this Richard Sharp, that Boris stop asking for advice on personal finances because it's now officially a clash of interests. Yeah. So that suggests that Simon Case knew that they were still... Yeah. They knew about his financial thing right up to then.
Nothing about what was going on.
Rishi Sunak was then found without a seatbelt on. Yeah. Is that just an attempt to distract from all other stories? Or maybe trying to distract from a story we don't even know yet?
I don't think it was meant to be. I just think I made a mistake.
The response from the right was to show a picture of Keir Starmer in a car, quite clearly wearing a seatbelt, claiming that he also wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Rishi Sunak, by the way, co-founded a hedge fund that has large stakes in Moderna. Do you remember that company that did the vaccine? And he refuses to say whether he still has a part, whether he's still a part of that hedge fund or whether he still has stakes in it. And it's estimated to be somewhere in the tune of, I think it's about £300 million stake that he's got in this company, or that this hedge fund has in this in Moderna. Carol Vorderman, by the way, is the one who's been dropping a lot of these bombs because she's friends with Dan Needle, who is a lawyer, who initially was looking into the Zahawi thing. Yeah. And by the way, there was a great moment on This Morning when Alison Hammond, it must have been a Friday because it was Dermot and Alison, and she just kind of went, "They're all corrupt," and she yelled, and then she puts her finger to her and she goes, "But anyway," and she's like, I don't know what the producers told her. Yeah. Move on she's like, but anyway, it's very tough out there, and anyway, absolutely loved that. Then, of course, there's what I would describe as possibly one of the most despicable things to have happened in politics or from politics in recent memory, which is, are you aware of Jonathan Gullis?
I'm not.
So I don't know if you're aware of this story, but in Brighton, there is a facility that houses mostly orphaned children who have been coming across in the boats, who have been coming in on the back of lorries and stuff. So the illegal immigrants, but it houses the children that are mostly their parents didn't make the journey or they sent them without them. It's housed so far about, now this is quite a shocking stat, so it's housed so far.
These are kids that have gone missing?
Yes, it's housed about 600, 700 kids, and 200 of them have gone missing, sometimes even being reported as being just straight bundled in the backs of vans. Now, this has been reported a number of times to the Home Office, and they've asked for extra patrols. They've asked for a change, because everything has to be signed off by the Home Office, by the way. So they've asked for like a change in the schedule. So they kind of asked, well, can we maybe, at least if the perpetrators don't know what we're going to do when we're going to do it, we might have a bit of a better chance. While this was brought up in Parliament by Labour, I can't remember who did it. I think it might have been Angela Rayner. Don't quote me on that. Jonathan Gullis shouted from the backbenches that they shouldn't have come here illegally then. Children being kidnapped. Absolutely shocking. Then, of course, we move on from that absolutely sickening, depraved comment, which, by the way, he's not even come out and said anything about. 30p Lee Anderson bragged online about paying a woman in her 30s not enough to live on her own. She simply rents a room in shared accommodation, living like a student, basically. Yeah. But he claims that she doesn't need a food bank. Probably unlikely anyway, though, because it turns out her dad is the former head of the British Army. The HS2, which was originally meant to run from Euston to Manchester, will actually only now go from Old Oak Common to the West Midlands. Yeah. So that's not even doing the whole journey, and that's been a huge cost of money and a huge disruption for a lot of people.
Wasn't that another Boris project?
Yeah. Meanwhile, stateside, this is probably one of my favourite stories. This is bordering on the side of light. Okay. Stateside, the FBI guy who deduced that there was no Russian influence in the 2016 election. Yeah. When they were like, well, you need to look into whether the Russians interfered with Trump's election. And this was the guy at the FBI who was in charge of that case, and he said, no, there was no interference. He's now being investigated and charged for taking Russian money, which is just perfect, isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah. That's pretty good. Like I said, the Braverman thing, which obviously happened, and then about a week later, it was Holocaust Memorial Day, which just seems really pertinent given what was going on. Car manufacturing in the UK is at a 40-year low. In 2016, we were putting out approximately 1.5 million cars. 2022, that's now down to 775,000. That is literally half the output. Jeremy Hunt gave a speech saying that we need to grow the economy without actually outlining how we might do that. Apart from suggesting that retirees get back into the work to fill the gaps left by Brexit.
Yeah.
The Metro reported that the Tories congratulate themselves on slashing fire regulations just months ahead of the Grenfell fire, wanting to abandon a quote-unquote health and safety culture that was hurting big businesses, and claiming to have reduced some companies' fire checks time from 6 hours down to just 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Recent polls show that 63% of people in the UK currently want to rejoin the EU, compared to just over 30% that want to stay out.
Yeah.
In sports news, Chelsea owner Todd Bowley is treating the transfer market like a fucking Panini sticker album. And to top it off, the Daily Mail had a front page story spurred on by Boris Johnson's interview with Nadine Dorries on Talk TV, where he claimed that over the phone, Putin threatened him with a missile. And honestly, I can say that I spent the last few days hoping nothing else would happen, because, I mean, as you can tell from this intro, a lot's happened.
Yeah.
Right? I've covered a lot. I've probably missed a lot. I just didn't want to have to keep adding to this list. And there's so much to cover. I mean, when I started, I remember when I messaged you and I said the GRR thing had just gone through, and I said, I really want to discuss it because I think it's a monumental moment in the devolution of the British nations. And then everything kept coming. And so the one question really is, where do you want to start? Or what have I missed? Is there anything that you wanted to throw?
I can't think of it. I mean, we've been sat here a while already now, just
listing. Not talking about, just listing.
I think we'll start with what you started with, which was the GRR.
Sure.
I didn't, to be honest with you, it only came onto my radar when I heard we'd overturned it. I wasn't aware Keir Starmer had supported the overturning of it, which is really disappointing.
Agreed.
And it's a shame. I'll detour slightly on Sir Keir Starmer in the fact that I've seen a lot of like people saying that he's quite fake, and that I don't know. I've always felt like his lack of willingness to perhaps nail himself to any particular mast has been an attempt to sit in the middle to attract as many people as possible to get Labour back into government, which I think is definitely part of it.
But he goes too far in that sometimes.
Yeah, I think there's certain things you just have to stand for.
Yeah.
And I think choosing to use something that we've never used before to stop just one part of our country make a decision for themselves on what they think is fair. They're not trying to impose it on anyone else. They're just saying, look, this is what we think is right, so we're going to do it. I know the Conservatives have made certain claims as to why they've done it in terms of legal issues it might cause.
A lot of their thing is the age, right? So the bill is from 16, and a lot of them have said it's too. Now, bear in mind, there was one backbench Tory MP that came out and said, well, I should point out that I recently found out, as a result of this bill, that actually in February this year, the law is going to change so that the legal age for marriage is actually going up to 18, where previously it's been 16. But her point that she made was, well, at 16, for all my life, and even now as we record this, you can get married, you can work and pay taxes,
have sex.
you can have sex, you can have a baby and start a family. But what you can't do is get a bit of paper that says a different gender kind of thing. And this is a Conservative. Obviously, I know sometimes you don't line up with all of the values of a party and whatever.
Yeah.
But her thing was like, this just is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Either 16's old enough or it's not.
What bothers me about it the most is, what are we actually doing that for? And to me, the only real reason I can think of, particularly for the Conservatives, I don't really understand why Labour would then support it. But for the Conservatives, it's appealing to a certain base, isn't it? To the small minority that are vocal and are horrible, are homophobic, are racist, transphobic, whatever you want to put on them, it's what they are.
And I think for a lot of people, there's a lot of...
But I don't understand. I understand why they're doing it, but I don't understand why they're doing it.
For a lot of people as well, there's a lot of internalized homophobia that they don't even understand. And the thing is, and I've said it before,
I don't know if it's internalized homophobia. Could it more be that people aren't comfortable in themselves?
I just think for a lot of people there is a lot of internalized homophobia.
Yeah.
But the whole, as it's been said before, and as is proven by the petition that was started to remove all LGBT teaching from school.
Yeah.
It's like, that's great. They start with trans people, and you will look back and go, well, maybe it's not that big a deal. And like you said, it's like this is less than 1% of the population we're talking about. But make no mistake, they will then move on once they've, for want of a better phrase, once they've eliminated trans people, they will move on to other queer people.
Yeah.
Like, make no mistake, that is the move. And like I said, we're sort of seeing that. I mean, this is the country that brought back... I just don't
get why this is happening. Really.
I think it's quite simple. I think it's look, like I said, trans people make up less than 1% of the population. So ultimately... Is it just an easy the decisions target? You make, will only affect a very, very small number of people on it. So it's not like you're going to get... Even if you get backlash and you get all these people going, I'm never going to vote for them, you're talking to less than 1% of the population.
Could it be as cynical as there's less foreigners coming in this country now, so we need another target?
Well, what I was going to say is what it does is it allows them to control the narrative and say, right, we're going to spend the whole time talking about this group of people because what we're doing when you're talking about this group of people is you're not talking about all this other shit that we're doing. And I think it's as simple as that. I think it's a shiny keys.
I think with this issue in particular, there's nothing really controversial to have an issue with. I've always been quite upfront with my issues when it comes to people transitioning. And it's not even like I have an issue with anyone transitioning, because I don't. What I mean is my hesitation towards things like how young someone could be to transition. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what the science is on it.
So where would you stand on this bill, this 16 bill? Like I said, it's nothing to do with medical transition. It's just about ID.
Like, makes me slightly if it's for ID, that doesn't...
That's it. It's just to change the birth certificate. If it was in
terms of being allowed to actually physically... I don't know what the age is currently in this country for someone to be allowed to actually go through the process of transitioning.
I think it's the same. I think... I'm maybe well off. I'm basing this on nothing. But I think it's the same as, like, getting a tattoo or something. I think it's like you can get it younger, but you have to have parental or guardian permission to do that.
Because my main issue is... I don't know what it does to the body that as it's developing to fuck with what's going on. Well, do you know what I mean? To change the process.
The key is in, when you do it at a young age, the key is quite in the name of what you're given. You are given puberty blockers. Right. They block puberty. What that means is if you...
thing to do to
no, because it's completely reversible.
Right.
If you come off of them, puberty kicks in and you will start going through puberty for your... But whatever you're assigned at birth.
What effect does that have on the body doing that later down the line when it should have happened earlier?
Well, that puberty blockers are only given younger.
Right.
So they're only given people who are going through or who are about to go through puberty.
Say, like, your body was meant to go through... Because everyone's different. No one goes through puberty at the same stage. But say, like, someone who was 12 wanted to transition and they haven't started going through puberty yet. And they're on these... How long are they on them for? I don't even know. Is it just... forever, or
it's not forever. It's until you move on to that next phase, which obviously varies from person to person.
Right. Okay. Is that to then have potentially physical augmentation rather than?
Well, it's basically just like a. Then you go on to hormones, but it's basically just a placeholder.
So then
it's basically to say, look.
Again, this is querying. It's just genuine curiosity. So say, for example, you go on the puberty blockers, and then after a certain amount of time, you start having hormone replacement therapy. So you're going from male to female.
Yeah.
Will that start changing your body physically, or?
Yeah, that will, but you can't go. Right. You can't be put on that as a child or as a teenager.
Right,
you only as a legal adult can you be put on that.
Could that happen with your parents' permission?
No. Medically, the doctor can't. People can come at me here, because I might be well off, but as far as I'm aware, it's one of those. You cannot get prescribed those medications.
Okay.
Until you have reached adult age. But what
does that include? The puberty blockers?
So the puberty blockers happen younger, but like I said, they're just a placeholder. What they are is to say, look, if you go through puberty of the sex that you are assigned, that's going to make transitioning
even
a whole lot difficult, and it's going to be a longer process. So what we can do is we can hold off on that And then if we get to the end and you decide actually, let's say for whatever reason you go, do you know what, I am.
How young do we let people start taking puberty blockers?
Well, it would only be approaching the age where they're going to start going through puberty. So once you start noticing the signs of puberty, that's when you can start.
And again, this isn't a transfer. I worry about, can a 12-year-old really know?
No, and whilst I appreciate that, like I said, these changes are completely reversible. If you put a 12-year-old, let's stick this 12-year-old, let's give this person let's give this person a name.
Yeah.
You tell me, what's this 12-year-old's name? Sam. It's great because it's gender neutral.
Yes.
Sam becomes Sam. Really easy. No problems. So Sam, we give Sam blockers.
Yeah.
What that means is when Sam gets to, even if Sam gets to like 14 and decides, no, do you know what? I'm not. I'm actually looking at all the kids going around me who are going through puberty and actually, I was wrong. I am whatever sex I was.
Yeah.
You take him off the puberty blockers. And obviously it's a slower process because you've blocked it, but then their body will start puberty.
Right.
And they will go through those changes.
Like I said, my only hesitancy is that I don't know what that, like, does that have a detrimental effect on someone long term? If it doesn't, and the science proves that, then fair enough.
Like I said, it's literally just like hitting pause. That's all it is.
My only concern when it comes to people transitioning is about what effect it has on them. And that's my only concern.
Like I said, what's
and
really
again,
important,
even if it does have a negative effect, if those people are going into that fully cognizant, signed up to it and agree to it, then
like I said, what's really important with this bill is that it's got, because it's been spun, there's been a lot of talk exactly like we're talking about now, going, how young's too young to transition and whatever. It's just social. It's just getting a piece of ID.
I don't think people feel comfortable enough having this conversation.
No, and I agree.
Like, I think a lot of people, like even me, I feel hesitant having the conversation with you, not because I think you're going to judge me or think I'm transphobic.
I always judge you.
That someone else could hear what I'm saying and go, oh, he's just a bigot or he's a transphobe, but it isn't. I'm just...
You don't have to read my blog if you don't want to see those things written about you.
But the thing is, it's just not something there's nobody like I follow that's trans.
No, and it's an educational thing as well.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not engaged in any of it, and I probably do sound ignorant about some of it, and to a degree I am, but that's not like a negative ignorance. It's just, it's not something I'm engaged with or have an interaction with in any way.
I made a conscious effort a couple of years ago to start trying to follow more. Trying to like the criteria is still the same. They've still got to be putting out content that I actually like want to read. They've got to be like funny
you're not just going to follow
educational
because they're trans.
No, like 100% not. They've got to actually still be putting.
They've got to be talented.
They've all got to be funny or putting out music or art or something that I enjoy. Yeah. But I did kind of make a bit of a drive to be like, okay, you know what, let's start
a bit more,
because they do post about their journey from time to time and the struggles and stuff. So it's kind of
like I said, my issue.
You do learn a bit,
and again, it's like I've mentioned before that I have an issue about trans people, particularly men transitioning to female, becoming a woman, and then competing against other women in quite physical, like even combat sports. I have an issue with that potentially.
The thing is, I think that I completely understand your concerns. But for me, the issue with that is that would be great if, in theory, then every trans woman in sport would be at or near the top of the game. And it's just not true. And also the hormonal treatment.
No, but there has been cases of men transitioning to female and then doing exhibition fights in MMA and just absolutely beating the shit out of women. I'm not
aware of any of those.
I can't remember the names. I've heard it on you're not gonna like this, Joe Rogan before, and he's talked about it. But again, like if someone's willing to put themselves in that situation, and then ultimately that's up to them. But I don't see why it's transphobic to believe that someone who grows up potentially up to 30 years of their life with testosterone in their system.
Oh, you got to pick on 30.
They're diabolic.
Oh, you got. Well, you
well, I'm in my 30s, so like for example, if I transitioned,
what a beautiful woman you'd make.
But I'd still be huge. I'd have had 32 years nearly of testosterone, my body being physically stronger.
You would during the process, you would lose a lot of muscle mass.
To a degree, but you'd still had you don't lose everything, do you?
No, but you would lose a certain amount.
Yeah, I can understand that, but I still think you must still have a physical advantage. Like I
don't see the evidence for it.
Well, I guess we have to see it. We have to see it play out and see what happens. But my main concern, I just don't want people to get hurt.
There are no sport. I know you've mentioned there the MMA, but there are no sports that I'm aware of even at an amateur level, someone's someone who has transitioned has then, like I said, been either at the top or near the top. They kind of just
properly opened themselves up to.
No, that's why I said at an amateur level. Even it's like not really.
Yeah, but you could argue someone at amateur.
I guarantee if they had, we'd read about it.
Yeah, probably.
We would know about it because it would be hailed as this person's taken up all the, it's ridiculous. They're taking away opportunities from, cis women. I think we'd know about it. That's the.
Yeah, but like I don't think enough sports have opened up to it, so we're not going to know.
But like I said,
I think it's going to be a case of we might have to see if people get hurt.
It's been twisted as a medical. It's got nothing to do with medical. It's just about getting a piece of ID. It's just about social transitioning.
In regard, that's why.
Just to try and bring us back.
But to bring us back to that, I think it's a massive shame because I think it shows we're moving in the wrong direction.
Like I said, us stepping in and overruling something, even no matter what it is.
Yeah.
That's a big moment in Scottish independence.
Considering how, like, the Scottish weren't happy in general when they had the last independence. And that was on a knife edge.
It was quite close.
And then we had Brexit.
I mean, me and you have said it before. Yeah, they voted in general to
remain.
And 63% of people polled at the moment would vote to rejoin. But then we said it before. Scotland leave. Suddenly Ireland reunifies. Because why would they stay?
Yeah.
They haven't even got a land border with us. And then it's just us and Wales.
Yeah. No longer Great Britain.
I think, we've not been Great Britain for a long while.
And the thing is, it seems like if we said that on national television, we'd get laughed at. Conspiracy theory, that's ridiculous. That's, what's it called? Catastrophism. But it's not that unrealistic.
Project Fear.
Yeah, we're not that far off of it at all.
No, it's coming.
Oh, we're playing footsie under the table.
Footsies.
Right. The other one I was going to talk about, if you don't mind, and you mentioned it earlier, was the issues we're having with the police.
Sure. Sure. I can't believe that there's not a more stringent vetting and training process.
The one you mentioned was the same one that I saw, but it was a policeman assaulting a dozen women over 20 years. That was one of the ones I saw. How does that make you feel about the police?
Honestly,
historically felt about them?
Honestly, no different, because I think for the last few years, my opinion of the police has been very low. And that's not to say, just to be clear, that's not to say individual officers, because I have met and interacted with a number of absolutely fine individual officers who genuinely want to make a difference to the community. But on the most part, on an institutional level, my opinion of the police has been really low. They are institutionally and systemically racist. Okay, they do offer no support for women and victims of. They actually, there are a number of. I have read, and it's really difficult to watch some of these accounts and read some of these accounts, but read accounts from a number of women who have been victim shamed and victim blamed when they've gone to report sexual assaults. I mean, there was one woman I was reading about. She said she reported rape.
Yeah.
First of all, the police officer assigned was very judgmental because she was on a night out and was very dismissive of it.
Why did you do this? Why did you do that?
Then, when they were going through it, they were basically implying that she was lying.
Yeah.
She was making up, because he said, and when she confronted him on it and said, look, why are you treating me like this? One of them said to her, well, look, we get a lot of women lying about it, ruining blokes' reputations. So, you can understand where we're coming from.
That's not their job, though, to make that judgment.
No, it's absolutely the wrong thing to say. And then that was the captain. Oh no, the intendant at a particular station.
Yeah.
She then reported that and said, that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Nothing done. Nothing. An investigation was launched, and it was found that no wrongdoing was done.
No.
And this happens again and again. And in fact, she said this was this same woman said that she'd actually reported this stalker, because it was basically some bloke being really creepy, following her around, messaging and whatever.
Yeah.
And at one point, the police officer apparently said during one particular conversation with the police, they'd said, look, phone us if he's beating you up or killing you. Otherwise,
leave us alone.
And that also comes into what I boil away. That comes into their powers and what they have jurisdiction over and what they're told. But I think there's such a huge problem. I mean, do you remember when Sarah Everard was killed and they held that vigil and the police started attacking the vigil? And it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You are in a fucking crisis. And then the vetting process. I mean, that Wayne Couzens, do you remember the one who killed her? He was known, banned for weight as the rapist because of his misogynistic views. How the hell are these people being given these? There's no vetting process, there's no training process. There was
another one I heard about. He was known as Bad Frank in his precinct.
It's shocking. What does it make you think? Does it change your opinion?
Like you, I mean, I've never really had an opinion on the police because my dealings with them have been so limited. And when I have had dealings with them in general, they've been all right with me, like yourself. So on an interpersonal level, I've never had any issues with the police, but I don't ever hear anything good about them.
No, and again, that part of that comes down to our privilege as well. Look, we're white men.
Yeah, 100%.
Truth is,
but it's quite clear from the top down. It's been fucked for a very long time. And this is the thing, this isn't a 20-year thing. There's a running theme and it's a wider issue, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it, is what the fuck are men doing and what have we been doing, man? Because from time immemorial, we'd use power, position, influence and money to just fucking abuse people. And I don't get it. And
no, I don't get it.
I don't know what we do about it. I don't know what it says about society. Like we rape, murder, and commit violence to a higher level than women do by absolutely miles. It's not even close. We've waged all the wars ever.
Like you said,
we make all the decisions.
We've literally used any idiom of power that we've had to
just make everything worse as well. And it makes me genuinely think sometimes we need less men involved in everything.
Oh God, yeah.
And it sort of feeds into what we tried to talk about the other week about young men and what do we do for them. I don't know. I don't know what we do about this. I think it has to come down to, and I think it's something we've talked about before. And I've heard there was a really good stand-up set by Daniel Sloss. I don't know if you saw it. It was a couple of years ago, maybe now, and we might have even talked about it on here before. But about what needs to happen is that we call each other out.
Yeah.
That if you have a group of
Have you ever called anyone out on it?
I must just be very fortunate that I've had a group of friends that we.
I've had it at work.
We don't behave like that. What did you have happen at work?
It's like small comments, like there's one guy who was like, it was in the summer and we passed some woman and she was in like short skirt and a vest top, whatever, and he said something to the effect of like, these women wonder why they get targeted going around after it. I'm like, well, no. I'm like, she can walk down the street naked. The omen is not on her to not get raped.
No.
The omen is on us to not rape her.
But do you see what I mean? That someone could actually say that.
Say what?
To say about rape. Do you know what I mean? It's just...
Oh, yeah, no. But I did... What I've just said to you, I did say. I did kind of... I try.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect. I'm sure I don't.
Like, it's not something I've ever really come across. Like, I've been involved in groups of blokes, and you talk about some stuff, but it's never.
In your group, you're the misogynistic one.
I don't think I am.
No, we've listened to the podcast. You're the misogynistic one,
mate. I've just sat here and said men should be involved less. Like women should.
An elaborate cover.
Yeah, I'm infiltrating them, Jake. Shh.
Then birds won't know what hit them.
Exactly, they will. My fucking fist.
I always know. So with the husband, I mean, are you like the stat as well? Like, we're such an emotion. I think part of it comes down to this as well. Not so much for the rape, but certainly for the domestic abuse, is that because we as men and that sort of toxic masculinity aren't taught to deal. We aren't even taught to acknowledge emotions. We aren't meant to have emotions, so we have no coping mechanisms. So when we get really emotional over things, like football, like they said, when England lose, domestic violence cases go up.
Yeah.
That's because men don't know how to
deal with the emotions.
They don't even know how to recognise emotions, let alone regulate them or cope with them.
Does that not just feel like a cheap excuse, though?
Oh no, I'm not saying it's a cheap excuse. I'm just trying to look at the.
No, I know.
I'm trying to look at the why. I'm trying to look at the.
But I feel like we should have evolved past a lot, and like it does. Whatever area of the world you want to look at, whether it's big business, whether it's politics, whether it's money, there's paedophiles everywhere, like, and rapists everywhere, and abusers everywhere, and
the paedophilia thing, I don't
get
that
it.
Child fantasy, like,
well, no, obviously not. We're not paedophiles, despite the other episode, Jay.
Do not diddle kids. Diddling kids is wrong.
But like,
one of my all-time favourites, by the way. Not paedophilia. That episode of Always Sunny.
As soon as men get into a position of influence and power, or I think part of the problem is the men that go seeking influence and power. It's the old saying.
That's it. Yeah, it is. The ones who want power should be nowhere near it.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to.
And the ones who are the best at wielding power are the worst at seeking it out.
So I was talking to someone recently, who'd been tapped up by. Obviously, there's a lot of strike action going on at the moment. Which, by the way, did you see one of the junior transport ministers in a select committee hearing admitting that actually the money they'd spent fighting the strikes
would have
actually paid for the demands of the strikes. They've actually paid more fighting the strikes than they would have doing it, which is quite a bleak.
Of course, I have.
Very honest of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, talking to someone who was asked recently, a couple of the guys at their work had sort of said, like, you should be the next rep of the union rep.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't really want it.
No.
And then we had that discussion of, like, in many ways, that's probably why you'd make a good union rep, because you wouldn't be doing it because you want the power or the position. You'd be doing it because you genuinely think that you'd have your colleagues' interest at heart.
Yeah.
I definitely think there's a part of that. Look, yeah, power attracts people who should be nowhere near power.
Yeah.
Because, like, let's be, like, not to pick ourselves up, but have you ever been attracted to positions of power?
Myself, I mean, yes.
Interesting. In what context? In what?
Well, when I was at work, there was a period where I was just like, I'm just going to go as high as I can.
Fair enough.
And like in my early 20s, I was running stores on my own. And I liked at the time. I felt chuffed that I was like, yeah, I'm running a store. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But only in the sense of achievement rather than what I could do with that position. It was just, I've got myself there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to be Prime Minister. Like if someone walked into the room now and said, we need you to be Prime Minister, would you do it? No, I'm not qualified to do it. I don't have the skill set to do it. I don't.
No, I mean, I can honestly say that any position of power I've ever held has just sort of happened.
Yeah.
I've never gone seeking it out. I mean, the last, managerial position I took was literally just, it came up. Well, I was asked to apply for it. And then I just sort of thought, I'm here anyway. I'm basically doing the job.
So I might as well get paid.
Get paid for it. Like, I have never ever sought out, because I tell you what I don't like about positions of power. I know I know we're sort of tangenting off, but allow us. It's a podcast, and we can do that. The thing I don't like about positions of power is the responsibility. Life is a lot easier without that kind of responsibility.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, no disrespect, particularly at like work, but it's like, I don't really give a fuck what happens at work.
No.
Why should I take on the responsibility for something I don't really care about?
Yeah.
It's not. It's just, it doesn't appeal to me.
No.
If I'm, for me, how I see myself, how others may see me may differ, but how I see myself is, if something needs doing and I've got to step up to do it kind of thing, I'll step up and do it. I've got no qualms about it. But I wouldn't seek to be in a position where I'm constantly, having to do things. If someone else is willing to do all that shit for me, or instead of me, not for me, great, fucking have at it.
Yeah.
And when shit hits the fan and I need to be there, I'll be there. That's my view on it.
See, now I'm couldn't be less interested in positions of power. I had the responsibility for a long time, and like there came a point, and I remember it because it was when my dad started getting unwell. up until that point, the amount of effort I put in, it felt like it correlated with how my career was going. So the more effort I put in, the more that was appreciated. And then I started rising and, you know, getting trusted with more stuff. So it was why, as a team leader, I was running stores before I was even a manager, because the work I was putting in and the capability I was showing meant that they could trust me with that. And I got a kick out of that. I liked being someone that they could rely on to go and fix things. And then I sort of, as soon as I became a manager, I seemed to hit this wall where it was like, right, so you see all that work you did before, you've now got to like go even further than that.
Yeah.
And initially I did that.
But then you think, where does it end?
But when you get into management, it's really weird. There's suddenly like, and I don't know what it's like working in other companies, but there was this level of politics where you just had to have any chance of succeeding, you had to say yes to everything. And the moment you said no,
you were bottom
it
of the
didn't
pack.
matter how much you'd done.
Yeah, you were bottom of the pack.
To whoever it was you'd said no to. And I literally remember, and this is what it boiled down to, and this is like in the end why I was like, fuck it, it doesn't matter because there's more important things in life. I was at a meeting once and I was sat next to a higher up, like my boss's boss, because I was sitting in for my boss at this meeting. And he said to me, I want you to do this course. And it was called the Rising Star course. And it was supposed to be 8 hours a week. And basically it was to sort of prove that I'd be capable of being made a store manager. Was this the thing where it was like,
but we're not going to give you the time or the money to do it. We're not going to pay you to do it.
And it said in the course paper that he gave me, because he gave me this booklet of like, this is what it is. And I was reading it. It said you had to be given 8 hours within your working week to do this. And I literally in the room, I think I flicked through it, and about like the break during the meeting, I said to him, I already see there being a problem because my store's not going to be able to afford to give me those 8 hours a week. And he was like, no, that has to go on top of your... And I said, but it says in here. And he was like, no, ignore that. You need to do it on top. And I said, well, I definitely can't do it then. And he was like, why? And I said, well, first off, I currently work 45 hours a week. On top of that, my dad's quite unwell, and I'd like to be able to go see him and be around him. And basically, the look he gave me was of like, he thought I was lying. And then like 3 more times in that same day, he said, are you sure you don't want to reconsider your decision? And I was like, it's not a difficult decision to make. My dad's really unwell.
From my perspective, that's actually a really
I'm already
easy decision.
Working really hard. If that's not enough, then, you know, and after that, my career just, and then even there was a point where, because I'd pissed that person off by saying no, he then left and I got a different boss. And that person literally met them once and they phoned my boss to say, we need to get him his own store. I was then having a conversation with her one day, and the person that didn't like me was waiting for her. And I could see the way he was looking at me because he was being made to wait for me, basically. And I literally, when the person I was talking to left, I went to my boss, it ain't going to happen now. And she was like, why? I said, because if you saw the look on his face, they're spending the rest of the day together. You don't think he's going to tell her about me? And he did. He slagged me off to her. And literally the next time my boss spoke to her boss, she said, I've heard some things about Andrew that make me worry. So just like that, all my hard work, everything I'd put into it.
Yeah, it's interesting because for me, because I've been in a similar position where like once you say yes, you're expected to always say yes. And if you say no, suddenly it's like, oh.
You're a problem.
Oh. But so because I've done that, I'm now in a position where, for me, always set out my boundaries. So like I was asked to take on a slightly different role. Yeah. And I said... And I sort of said, okay, what are the conditions? What actually is the spec? What's the, you know, all this stuff. And they sort of told me, and I said, okay, because it was, I was asked to take on another store as well. Yeah. And I sort of said, okay, I said, but I'll tell you now, these are my conditions. Yeah. I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it this way. Yeah. And they sort of went, and they wanted to be fair to them, they sort of went, no, that's fair enough, I get that. Because I explained to them like, and it was the explanation was as simple as this: I'm not doing that because I don't want to do that. Yeah. And it, you know, I know that sounds really, but that's my I'm setting my boundaries now, so that later down the line when they come and go, oh, can you do this and that? I'm like, no, because I told because it's come up before where I've sort of said yes to stuff, and I've had to have a meeting with my manager where I've said, look, I said I was being asked to cover a role, and it would happen maybe like, you know, once, twice a month.
Yeah.
And I was fine with that. I was like, yeah, that's not a problem. When that person's not in, when you can't get the cover for it, fine, I'll do that person's job. I'm not that bothered about it.
Yeah.
But then it came to a point where I was basically doing their job full time.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, if I wanted their job, I'd have fucking applied for their job.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't mind covering, but this is just getting ridiculous. And so for me, I've never had, I've not never had a problem with boundaries. I used to have exactly the problem you just gone through. You know, you'd say yes, and suddenly you've got to say yes every time, or you're out of favour.
Yeah.
Like you said, you're a problem, and you think, no, I'm good for that. I don't mind being seen as a problem. I'll come to work, I'll do my job, and I'll go home. I'm absolutely fine with that. And in fact, I'm even, between you and me, I'm thinking about taking a drop or asking for a drop in position in the next few months, because my role, as a result of various changes in the company, my role would change.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do
the job it's going to be.
I don't want to do the job it's going to be. So like when I signed up to it.
And the thing is, it's about your mental health as much as anything, because like I got to a really unhealthy place as a manager at one point, and I wasn't putting enough into it towards the end, because it got to a point where I was having to ask people, or they were asking me or saying to me, this is what's expected. And I'd be like, well,
I haven't got that in the tank.
That's more than we used to have to get. Well, no, not even that. That's more than we used to have to get done. And I've got half the staff I did.
Yeah, one of those.
How am I meant to achieve that? And they're like, well, you just tell them it's got to get done. And it's like, but I wouldn't be able to get that done. And you pay me more than them, and I can't get that done. So how can I, with a straight face, go and tell them, you got to get this done? They'd be like, oh, because it just has to get done. It's like, yeah, but that... and I just... So it meant, like, basically, I became a pain in the arse towards the end. I was just like, no, I just got to a point where it was me or...
It's a retail thing. Like I said, where I'm at now, it's not strictly retail. There's... It is a kind of retail, but it's not strictly retail, and that works okay for me. Not great. Like I'm not, you know, still not there with the job satisfaction thing. But when I was in, I had exactly the same thing. They'd be like, "Oh, you need to get this done." I'm like, "Okay, with what fucking staff?
Yeah,
how am I meant to get that done?" And they give you that thing of just like, "Look, that's your problem," kind of thing. It's like, well, it's not, because I've told you now it's not doable. So when it's not done, don't be coming to me saying, "Why don't you do it?" I told you it won't happen. So yeah, I had all that. I mean, like I said, my job now is like managing 2 shops, and I was being asked to take on a 3rd. There's lots of I don't mind that. Like I said, I set out the rules. I said, because of the location of it, I did say I was like, I'm not going to be working there
very often.
Because I don't want to include that in my commute. I was like, I don't mind taking it on and doing all the admin stuff.
Yeah.
And going there once every couple of weeks just to check in and see it. I was like, I've got no problem with that at all. But I'm not going there full time. There's been loads of problems with that shop and getting it up and running, and then they're now closing one of the shops I run.
Okay.
The shop that leaves, I honestly hate being in it.
Can I quickly guess? I'm not going to say a location. Is it the closest one to here?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Well, they want to increase the rent on it.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it takes it out of our
price
scope.
Range.
And like, I don't think they'll get that. I think what they'll do is they'll get a bunch of short-term tenants, because people will go in and they'll be like, this place ain't worth that.
No, where it is, it's sort of positioned a bit further away from the foot traffic.
It's just a bit too far away from all the footfall. But so the shop it leaves is just, I hate it. It's too retail. I know I've just said about retail. Yeah. It is the most retail place that I work.
Okay.
Fucking hate it. I honestly don't like being there, and I don't mind being there at the moment. Well, I'm not there at the moment. I'm on secondment, but I don't mind being there because it's punctuated by 2 or 3 days. It's split. Half the time I'm there and half the time I'm at this other place that's now closing, which was fine with me. Now, if I've just got to be there full time, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. There's no way.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't care. I will take the pay cut. I mean, I can't really afford the pay. I can just about afford it, if that makes sense. But it's like you said, you've got to put your mental health ahead. And it's like, mate, my mental health will tank.
And the thing is, if you know you're not going to want to do it, you're not going to be able to do it at some point. It's going to reach a point where you just can't do it anymore.
I mean, I was like, I didn't even realise it till I was out of it, but I don't know if you remember, but when I was working in proper retail, I was clinically depressed. I mean, I was really in a bad place, and I didn't even realise it till I got out of it. And then I looked back and it was like, hey, that's pretty dark.
Yeah.
I'll go back there if I work in this place full time. Like, I genuinely, it will tank
and it's not
my
worth
health.
it. Like, when I was a manager, towards the end, I was on the highest dose of sertraline I could be on, and I was not in a good place.
No.
I'm now not on sertraline at all. I go into work, and like the hilarious thing was the other day, sort of hilarious, sort of like it makes you feel like you wasted a lot of time. I got my first like full-time pay month since working for my new company, and it was slightly more than what I would earn
as a manager,
and it made me chuckle. I'm glad it made me chuckle.
Yeah,
there was a bit of me that went off, but I was just like, and now I get to go into work now with zero responsibility on my shoulders, do what they ask me to do when I go in. So it means, like, compared to like when you're a manager and you walk in and the place could feel like it was literally burning down when you walked in and everything was going wrong, and 5 people have gone sick and we had a break in Christmas morning.
Yeah, I remember that.
It can literally be anything. And now I just go in and whatever they ask me to do, fine, I'll go, whatever.
And then at the end of your shift, you go home.
Yeah, that's it.
But you know what? It was really, I don't know if it came across as rude. I hope not. Then again, I don't really care. With a customer not that long ago, like last couple of weeks, and it was a bit of a problem. There was a lot going on and whatever, and I just sort of like had to say to them at one point, because they were asking about this, and they were like, and I sort of said, oh, and then it'll be someone else will deal with it, and they'll be like, why someone else? Like, you're the manager. And I was like, let me be clear. At 5 o'clock, I shut that door and I stopped giving. I mean, I didn't swear. So how did I phrase it? I said at 5 o'clock, I shut that door, and the job stays here. I was like, I do not take any of that home with me. I go home and I live my life.
Yeah.
I said, and then 9 o'clock the next day, I open up and I start again.
Yeah.
I said, but before 9 o'clock and after 5 o'clock, I do not care about this place. And I sort of said, I know that sounds really cool, and I know that sounds really, that's not what you want to hear, but I will do everything I can while I'm here.
Yeah.
And while it's my job. But my job does not pay me beyond those hours.
No,
I will not work beyond those hours.
No. And that's something that seems to be forgotten by a lot of employers as well.
Yeah.
But yeah. No.
We've ended up talking a bit more about, like, I don't know, almost like mental health thing.
Yeah. That's not really surprising considering how shit things are in the country in general at the moment. Like, in general, the last couple of weeks, despite all this stuff going on, not intentionally, because I've been working a lot, I just haven't had the energy to really keep up with everything. So, like, I've not really been in the weeds
I've just
of it.
keep seeing things.
No, I know. And, like, most of the things you've talked about, I've had a general awareness of, other than a couple. But and if anything, I felt quite good the last couple of weeks because I've just not engaged with all the depressiveness that's going on. And in general, I just try to engage with things I enjoy. Like, I tend to rewatch a lot of stuff I like now. We were talking before the pod came on. I'm saving up The Last of Us. I've heard nothing
really
but good things.
It is really good so far.
So yeah, things are good and bad, I guess. Do you know what I mean? Just doing.
Where are you with your own mental health at the moment?
All right. I have the odd wobble. It's difficult living away from Leanne, but she's amazing, and when we're together, we make it work. So I'm lucky in a lot of ways. I'm lucky to be in a situation where I have a mum that I can live with and save up and get things sorted. You know, if I didn't have her, I'd be pretty fucked. I could be depressed about things that have gone wrong in my life and the mistakes I've made and not being happy where I am, particularly now. But I'm also fortunate in a lot of other ways, and that's what I tend to focus on. And instead of like lamenting and ruminating on the silly mistakes I've made or the bad decisions, my focus is on making sure I just don't make those same mistakes again and learning from it. So in general, I'm just trying to be more positive. It's not every day. There's some days where I'm a right miserable wanker. But just in general, I try to see things more positive now.
Fair enough.
What about you?
Probably a bit more on the down at the moment,
Yeah.
if I'm being completely honest. I think there's been a bit of stuff going on at home. Some of it I've spoken to you about. Some of it also there's a bit of an illness in the family, which that in itself doesn't affect my mental health, because I kind of see it as it is what it is situation.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes it's a bit heartbreaking, but like I said, I see it as a
what can you
that
do?
Sucks, but it is what it is. And we'll just get through it. But it's causing a lot of stress for some other members of my family, and seeing them in distress, is
it's hard,
quite upsetting. Plus, I think, like I said, I've sort of touched on it there, but job satisfaction is kind of really in the toilet, and I keep thinking, okay, change jobs, change career. And this is the thing. So, you know, when in the cost of living, we've heard quite a lot as well. We'll just go and get a better job. Like, I'm trying. No one will hire me because
do you know what I mean? Like,
because all of my background, all of my experience rather, is
in retail.
It's bar work and it's retail work. And quite frankly, and I've decided, like, straight off the bat, I'm not, whatever my next role is, it's not retail. No. I cannot pigeonhole myself any further into this industry. I just can't.
No.
Because I hate it. I'm so unhappy in this industry. I'm so unhappy in it. And all the people that I know that have moved out of it, most of those are people who were just in it whilst they got degrees for other things and stuff. Yeah. None of them have ever said anything bad about. None of them have ever said they miss it. No. None of them have ever said that it was like a move that none of them have even been indifferent about it and gone, you know, it was all right, and then I moved on. They've all been like, no, I'm glad I don't do that anymore. Yeah. But I do that. Yeah. And I think it's hitting me at the moment, particularly because my job's going to be changing a little bit.
So there's uncertainty.
It's hitting me about how unhappy I am with my job. And look, I'm at my job 5 days a week for, you know, at least half of my waking day, if not more, because obviously you've got to count in commute time and stuff. So, like, it's a large part of your time you're there, and if you're not happy with it. Plus, I've been really lucky, like, so the secondment part of it as well is the secondment I'm on ends in, like, April. And so there's been quite a few people who've been on secondment. There's kind of been a shuffle around to fill a gap. I've been really lucky. I got the lucky end of the spectrum. Like, I'm in the best secondment. Yeah. But I know I'm going back, and it's like, I don't want to go back. I mean, I don't necessarily want to stay there forever, but...
Have you got any ideas what you'd like to do?
Anything, really. Honestly, I know that sounds really dumb, but, like, I will try my hand at any other industry.
More an office job sort of thing?
I would like a less customer-facing role. I don't mind people-facing role, but not a customer-facing role. I can't deal with...
People are not nice.
And I get... My patience for them is so limited.
And I don't know what it is. When people walk into a shop, and it doesn't matter what shop it is, people seem to think they lose all responsibility to have to behave with any level of intelligence, common sense or decency. And I don't know what that is, but they seem to think because they're buying a service or goods from this establishment, that any requirement they have of you is a reasonable one.
Well, also, I think people, you know, I'm not a salesman.
No.
And people sometimes think you are, so they'll ask, you know, they're expecting you to try and sell them the product, so they kind of like want to, you know, almost tease it out of you, and it's like, mate, I couldn't give a shit whether you buy this or not. It's entirely up to you. I mean, there was a bloke with a fan the other day, and I nearly snapped at him almost, because he was like, he kept pressing the button to turn the oscillation, and I kept showing him. I was like, well, that just turns the thing. And he was like, no, I want it still. I was like, okay, but you need to stop pressing the button then, because that just turns the thing. Yeah. And I was already quite short with him. And then he kept saying, oh, it's a bit weak. Like, you know, it's a bit weak, isn't it? And I just sort of went...
How much was it?
Like 15 quid. And I just went, it is what it is. And then he said it a couple more times. I was like, yeah, it's a bit weak. And I just sort of went, oh, I can't make it go faster. I was like, I'm not a fan engineer.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You've seen it. And it was a bit... And it's like, yeah, I'm getting more and more like that with each passing day. That's not a once in a blue moon thing anymore with me getting short with customers. That's becoming quite a... Particularly with donations. I snapped at someone with donations the other day. It's like charity shop working. Because like 2 customers in a row brought in bags and they were like, oh, it's just clothes in there or just books, and there was other shit in there.
Yeah.
So then the third one came in within the space of about 2 or 3 hours, and they were like, oh, just some clothes in there. And I was like, is it? I was like, is it just clothes? And he was like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, well, is there other stuff in there as well? Or is it just clothes? Can I take that donation as just clothes?
Yeah.
And then he was like, the missus packed it, I don't know. And I was like, because, if it's not clothes, I have to throw it away if I don't think I can sell it. And that costs us money.
Yeah.
It's like, so I can't take donations that I don't think I can. So is it just clothes?
Yeah.
Or are there? And I just sort of like really...
He was
not
like,
went
forget
at him.
about it, mate, I'll leave.
Oh, you do get that with people sometimes when they go and they offer you some absolutely dodgy old shit.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, I'll take somewhere else then.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
I don't get what it is.
bye.
When people have something that clearly isn't something anyone would want to pay for, just take it down the dump, man. Like, you're already taking it somewhere.
It's because we're cheaper than the dump, aren't we?
Are you?
Yeah.
It's free to go to the dump.
No.
You get a certain amount of free visits.
You get a certain amount of free, plus it depends on what it is.
Who's using all that allowance?
Plus, it depends what it is as well.
Yeah.
Because this is changing. Anything that they can recycle, fair enough. But the stuff that you can't,
now, what
they have to pay
up
for.
Until now, people are just being lazy wankers. It's not even, like, it's beyond lazy, because it's like, you're already leaving the house with this thing.
Yeah. But anyway, that's where I'm at with it. Job satisfaction very low.
You've got to get on that, mate.
I'm thinking about it. I'm trying.
Yeah. You could try selling your body.
No one wants it.
I don't believe it.
I was running free offers.
There's someone out there.
There's
someone out there.
Oh, you think I can make an entire sex work career out of one customer?
If you're really good at it.
If it's like an Arab sheikh, great.
Yeah.
I can make that career switch.
If it's someone homeless, it's less.
If it's just like, Steve from the local council.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm picking on councils there, but if it's just, some like boiler,
I could
some plumber or
100%
something.
believe some councillor putting up to your street corner, just sliding a note out the window.
If I'm honest, I'm grateful it's a note.
Yeah.
It'd be quite degrading to do that for coins.
Yeah. You're going to have a verifier, though, like a fucking...
Yeah, mate, I'm not taking those fucking dodgy notes.
Yeah.
I'll stand there. I'll bring a card machine. Pay by card.
I could believe that as well.
But I'm not fucking taking dodgy notes.
You've got to earn a crust, mate.
Yeah, but a legitimate crust.
I know it's illegal, but if you enjoy it, I support your decision.
I enjoy the money.
Yeah.
I enjoy the real, not fake money.
How much are you charging this guy?
Depends what he wants.
He wants everything.
A lot.
Is that what you'd say?
I'd charge a lot.
No, but he's then going to go,
because it scares them off. Because
what's a lot?
Well, this is the thing. If they go, what's a lot? They can't afford it. Okay, they're already budgeting in their head.
Well, what if he just says, name your price?
But if I just say a lot, and they go, all right, then I know they can afford it. I can fleece them. There's some money in this.
Yeah, but then what are you actually going to ask for?
Well, money. What would you ask for?
No, I'm asking. I'm not the one prostituting myself.
Depends how much I think I can get.
He drives up in a 5-year-old Jag. He's a local councillor. He's got some money.
Do you know what? I'd probably ask for maybe. What we're going for, an hour, a night?
He wants a night.
Oh, night?
No. 2 hours.
2 hours. I don't know, 600 quid.
Wow.
This may come as a shock to you.
You're making yourself a high-end hooker.
Listen, despite my many claims in this podcast, this may come as a shock to you that I've never used an escort service. I don't know what the going rate for...
Well, neither do I, mate.
I don't know what the going rate for... Well, how do you know it's high-end then? How do you know it's high-end then?
It sounds expensive.
It's cost of living, mate. Everything's gone up.
Like, I'm trying to imagine if I tried to tell Leanne how much I was going to charge her for my sexual services. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think the cost of drugs have gone up as a cost of living?
Drugs?
And escort?
What sort of drugs are we talking about?
Like the kind that you couldn't buy in Boots?
Specifically? Because they all have different price ranges.
Well, I know, but do you think they've gone up? That's what I'm saying. Do you think like the price of cocaine has gone up because of the cost of living?
I can't speak about cocaine.
Do you think the price of escorts have gone up?
I don't use escorts. But I would imagine with cost of living, everything's gone up.
Don't know. So that's why I'm charging £600 for 2 hours.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's increased by, like, that's well above inflation.
Imagine like someone walks in on you looking up escort services and you're like, it's research.
I just want to know how much
it's just research, okay? Sitting in a police station being like, officer, I do a podcast.
Yeah.
And sometimes we want to get our facts right, okay?
Yeah.
And
I want to know how accurate we're being.
You know, was I gonna meet her? Yeah, but for the podcast, okay, so I could talk to her.
Yeah,
and it's companionship. It's companionship, officer. It's all companionship. You know, we're just talkers. We just talk.
But no, I know certain drugs haven't gone up.
I know you know certain drugs haven't gone up.
Crack cocaine,
heroin, MDMA.
Yeah, meth.
You know, the price of a good night is still the price of a good night.
Psilocybin mushrooms. Yeah, all of them.
Other mushrooms.
Yeah.
Mushrooms have actually gone up.
Everything's gone up, bro.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. But I'm at that stage now where when people are like, God, how much is it? I'm done with hearing it now. I'm like, yeah, it's shit. Like, everything's going up constantly.
Yeah, you lot voted for it. Deal with it.
Yeah. Well, no, not even just that, but like people, like even like my mum will be like, oh, this is, and I'm like, yeah, I know, but like everything had, like you can pick the next time you pick up, that would have gone up. So, you know, it's shit. We're all upset about it, but what can we do?
Cry, I guess. Sell our bodies for £600 a go.
Well, let me know how you get on with that.
Sure.
And if I suddenly see you pull up in a Jag, then I know
it's gone well.
It's gone reasonably.
Or he didn't have 600 quid on him, and I took his Jag.
Yeah, because that's a fair trade.
If he's not got
I should have gone to the bank.
Should have gone to the ATM, mate.
How are you getting the Jag off of him?
Well, he's not going to have his clothes on, is he? So I'll just sort of like nick his keys and walk away.
What if you had sex in the car?
Well, I'm not going to have sex in his car. Not for 600 quid a night.
No.
No.
What if it was one of his things? I want to do it in the back seat.
All right, fine. But afterwards, you go and pick up something over there.
And then just drive off.
And then drive off, yeah.
Fair enough. Well, you thought this one through, bro.
It's pretty foolproof. I mean, I don't think you'll find a hole in this plan.
Do I get to be your pimp?
Are you going to want to cut?
Yeah.
Well, then I don't want to.
I'm not offering you the protection and marketing that I'm going to bring.
You don't even know anything about escorts. How are you going to protect me?
I'll find out.
You're going to do your own research. I'll tell you what. Let's go away. We'll both do some research on this subject.
I'm researching pimping.
When we're talking to the police, they've got this episode to go back to.
When it all started.
They go, no, it's just for research.
I didn't engage in any of the prostitution. I've just profited
I'm not actually going to become a pimp. Obviously, yes, I did a bit of pimping because I needed the experience to know how it's all well and good looking at the account of a pimp, but I want to know how I'd be as a pimp. Yeah. So to do that, officer, I had to.
I just went on the streets with him. Yeah.
I just sit there and offered his wares.
Yeah.
Would you be a salesman, or would you literally just offer protection?
Both. I'm the full package.
You're the full package. And you're selling to it. What cut do you want?
I'm not greedy. I appreciate you're the one doing the deed, but my protection, my marketing, my expertise comes at a cost. This is the... you could almost do a Dragon's Den like this, couldn't you? Have pimps in the room, have a woman or man come in, a prostitute come in and be like, these are my numbers. I'm looking for a new pimp to,
I'm offering you 10% stake for...
Yeah. And then we negotiate. I feel 30 is a number.
30%? You must be joking. That 30 is a number. You're absolutely right. 30 is a number. It's sandwiched somewhere between 29 and 31.
It's a number I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, I bet it is.
How much were you thinking?
Like absolute top 10.
Wow.
I mean, I was going to negotiate down and be like 8 or 7.
The lowest I could go.
The thing is, though, let's just remember this. I'm the one that's going the lowest any of us can go.
Yeah, but what if he gets rough with you?
Sort of morally.
Who are you going to look to protect you?
For 30%, I'll take the beating.
The lowest I could possibly go. 20.
It's just, I mean, at least you're in slightly more reasonable terms here.
But that's as low as I'll go.
But I'm charging £600 for it. I'm charging £300 an hour.
So what's 20%?
So if I work,
that's 120 quid out of that I get.
So if I work for,
you're still left with what? 480.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if you're getting for 10%,
it's covering my petrol. It's covering my food costs for that trip. And for 2 hours, that means my hourly rate's about £60 an hour. So
if I do 3 hours work, 5 nights a week, you get 90 quid a night. Do you know what I mean? You're getting 450 quid a week extra
sounds
for very little.
And how much are you getting?
A lot more.
Exactly. So everyone's a winner.
Well, not everyone. Not them suckers we're charging.
Look, you've shown them a good time. You've looked after them.
I've shown them a time. I think we're overestimating my value.
Mate, if you're charging them 600 quid, you better fuck a lot.
Do you know what? Honestly, I mean, I can't imagine being myself in a position where I would pay that way. But if I was paying like £600
the things you'd expect them to do.
Well, not just, all I'd be thinking, no matter what she was doing to my dick, all I'd be thinking was 600 quid this is costing me. 600 quid, 600 of my hard-earned English pounds, and that's all I could think. Do you know what a mood killer that must be?
Well,
how hard it is to maintain an erection when I'm just thinking £600. This is £600.
You're assuming that's the going rate.
Yeah, I don't know what the going rate. I really don't know what the going rate is. If you know, you should email us at CrossingSwords19@gmail.com. We know you probably know through a friend. We know you probably know, because a friend knows.
Yeah.
We don't expect you to know.
No, but talk to your friends. Let us know. Where can they do that, Jake?
Where am I going to do that?
Where can they do that?
Anywhere you meet your friends. Anywhere your friends are, you can ask them.
But where can they contact us?
Oh, to contact us. They can contact us, CrossingSwords_podcast on the Instagram. On the Instagram. How old am I? Fucking hell, I shouldn't be charging £600 a night. I should be offering like DILF rates. They can find us Crossing Swords on Facebook. They can find us at Swords Crossing on Twitter. And they can find us on YouTube as well.
They can.
You can see
the link to which will be in the description of this episode.
Click on it, open it up, and see generally whether you'd be happy to part with 600 hard-earned pounds. For our international listeners, don't worry with the conversion rates, because it might not work out in your favour. You might not like that. I might put you off even more. So don't convert it into local currency. Just keep it at 600.
If they're from Zimbabwe.
Millions. I mean, if you're
going to do it for 600 Zimbabwean dollars.
No, God, no. But at least it sounds more appealing that way. I mean, like for our American friends, I think the current conversion rate leaves it at about, it would cost them about, I don't know, 780 dollars. That doesn't sound very appealing, does it? 600 is an easier number, just psychologically. So don't do the conversion rate.
But you are going to charge them the extra.
I wouldn't, absolutely. I'll do the conversion rate when I charge you.
But you just don't want them to do the conversion.
But hypothetically, if you're just trying to work out whether you would, don't, because it might put you off. But have a little look, open up, and whether you want to pay £600 for this for a couple of hours or not, hit the subscribe button.
Yes.
Hit the like button.
And click the share button.
And share it, because sharing is caring, but obviously I only share at a price.
Yeah. But we want you to share for free.
It does cost to share me, but yeah, you share for free. Share us for free.
Yeah. Because we're giving you this entertainment for free.
It's a hell of a jump to go from how's your mental health to how much would you charge to sell your body.
There's no price I could put on me. I'm priceless.
No, I reckon I could come up with a list. If you give me enough time, I can come up with a price list.
And you let me know in the next episode.
And I'll be damn sure I'm not charging you 30% as a pimp.
No. Well,
Don't
that's
know
my
what I
price.
charge.
My price is 20. Bottom end, I would prefer 30.
20 for me, you mean? If I was your pimp?
No. Like, what are you offering me?
Well, what would you want?
What do you mean? What would I want? What is it?
Well, if I was your pimp,
what
would you want
I
to
don't
be
really
paying
feel
me?
like you can offer me the protection.
Mine's more of a marketing perspective.
I mean, that means you're offering me less than I was offering you.
No, and protection. I will protect you.
Well, no, but I can protect myself, thank you.
I just imagine, like, some guys getting really rough with you. I'm like, he just looks quite big, so I'm just kind of going to leave him to it. He looks like he'll probably tire himself out.
Yeah, I think I'd give you around 5.
5k a night. That's big.
5%.
That's bold, and I like it.
5%. Yeah, I have a night where I only took 4, and I'm not
this is costing you money. I'm paying to be a prostitute. I'm actively paying out of my own wallet.
Yeah.
To sell my body.
Yeah. and to have you involved for some reason.
Well, you'd want to do it with a friend. You wouldn't want to do it alone, would you?
If it was between that and having to give you $5,000 a night, I'd rather do it alone.
Well, do you know what? That's where I'm a good pimp, because it motivates you to work harder.
And on that note, guys, let us know who do you think would be a better pimp. I'm pretty sure I know the answer.
Who would be a better whore?
I'm pretty sure I know the answer
well,
again.
You don't know. We don't know the answer to that, I think.
Well, who would be better at it, or who would be more popular?
Oh, both. Do you think there's a difference between who'd be more popular and who'd be better at it?
Yeah.
Okay, so which way who do you think would be better at it, and who do you think would be more popular?
I think initially you'd be more popular.
Right.
I think you're naturally better looking.
Right, okay, but
I think because I'm better at it, I would ultimately be more popular.
But why would you be better at it?
Come on, bro.
No, what do you mean, come on, bro?
There's more to hold on to. My general sexual skill in general. Do you know what I mean? I'm just good at it.
What, because I'm quote unquote an efficient lover. Because I like to get to the point.
Yeah.
Well, I like to get to my point.
Yeah.
Just for the record, I'm not like that.
I just feel like I could show people a better time.
Just for the record, or you have to have sex to find out what you like. I'll find out one day. I'll get there. I'll get there.
Yeah.
I'll get there. These bloody police keep taking them all.
Yeah.
No, that was too dark. I regret that. That was too dark.
That was too dark.
I take that back. That was despicable. I am ashamed of myself. Not as ashamed of myself as I would if I signed up for the Met, but I'm quite ashamed.
Right, guys. Take care of yourselves.
Bye.